Welcome, I'm Lance Roberts with 3 minutes on markets and money. I want to talk about something that is important because there's a lot of articles out right now talking about, well, just save 10% of your salary, have $1 million in the bank, and you can retire. The problem is that the math doesn't really work that way. And I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about why a lot of the things you've been told about saving and investing is wrong. Over time, the cost of living adjusts. The things that we were paying for back in the early 80s certainly cost a lot more today than they did then. And over a 30-year time horizon, things change. Things become more expensive, and of course, the cost of living goes up. And interestingly enough, back in the early 80s and early 90s, we actually had more in wages and income coming in and savings in the bank to cover the actual cost of living, the standard of living to raise a family of 4 in the U.S. Today, the differential between what we earn and the cost of living is about a $3,000 gap that has to be paid by credit card debt. Of course, this is why we have record credit card debt in the country today. As we talk about this, one of the common misconceptions is that markets compound at a certain rate of return. The power of compounding is very important because it doesn't actually occur in markets with variable rates of return. The issue is if I want to compound my money at 10% a year, for 3 years I average 10% every single year, that's a 10% rate of return. But in just 1 year, if I lose 10% of my money, it reduces my overall average rate of return to just 5. It destroyed 50% of my compounded rate of return. More importantly, to get back to that average rate of return, that compounded rate, I need a 30% return in the 5th year. So importantly here is that markets don't compound, and because of variability, where we wind up is always very far off the mark that the average rate or compounded rate of return was supposed to give us. This is why a majority of people in the country today are very short of their actual retirement goals. But more importantly, $1 million today simply doesn't generate the rate of return that it used to. In fact, in the early 1980s, $1 million would generate almost $100,000 a year. The cost of living was around $20,000. Today, the cost of living is around $60,000 a year, but $1 million will only generate about $20,000 to $30,000 a year, leaving a gap of about $40,000. So while $1 million sound great, it certainly isn't going to provide you the income you need, because the other problem is that we also don't inflation adjust our needs over time. Making $40,000 today is certainly not what $40,000 is going to be 30 years from now. So the need for savings and the need for growth is far more than most people actually bargain for. This is why most savers fall well short of their retirement goals by the time they get there. Most importantly is that you need to save a lot more money than you think for retirement. In fact, the differential between what the media tells you need and what you actually need is about twice as much. But there are things that you can do to be successful. Pay yourself first and aggressively. When you get paid, save money, and you need to save about 30% of your income, not 10%. It's all about cash flow. Without positive cash flow, you can't save money. Have a budget. Get off of social media. It not only reduces productivity, but it also encourages you to spend money outside of your budget. Pick up a side hustle, 2 or 3. Make sure you're meeting your savings goals. Get out of debt and stay that way. No, you don't need a credit card to have credit. If you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it. More importantly, adjust for future inflation. Understand the impact on your savings, and expectations for compounded annual rates of return need to be adjusted and dismissed. And that's 3 minutes on markets and money. Read the article at realinvestmentadvice.com. It's part 1 of a 2-part series. realinvestmentadvice.com. We'll see you next time.